Hi FlossTube, it's Jess from Jess Crafts Stitches here on YouTube and jess.crafts.stitches on Instagram. I wanted to share a February update with all the things that I have been stitching. It's been quite cold here. We've been dealing with some like sickness, colds on and off. And so if I have some nasaliness to my voice still, I am recovering from the latest one. And so I just wanted to apologize for any of that, but it shouldn't be too bad. I'm not coughing or anything right now. So hopefully it's not too disruptive, but I am ready for spring. We're having a little bit of warmer weather on this particular day. I know it won't last. We will kind of go in and out of spring for a while, but you know, even though it's the end of February, it's February 24th, I want to say, when I'm filming. I know that it's like there's still some time for winter. We still have a whole month before it's officially spring, but I'm a little like I'm having that antsiness of readiness for spring. I don't always feel that way, but I definitely do right now. So I'm going to enjoy the warm weather that we are having. So let's get started. I have 5 fully finished objects today and one additional finish, then some whips and some other things to chat about. So first up, this was shown as a finish in my January update, but I've since fully finished it. It is the Primrose Cottage February 9 patch, stitched on 16 count Whimsy by Picture This Plus with Weeks Dye Works Peony, Begonia, Garnet, and DMC 310 for those little beaks. I did a simple pillow finish where I left a seam in the back, and then I did the like invisible stitch. I always feel like I have to put that in air quotes because like I can see it, but it's not too bad. And so I finished them super simple like that. I did buy some rickracked and am considering maybe trying to incorporate something a little bit more detailed in future ones. But for now, I like having some additions to my dough ball, and I've been keeping them simple so that I finish them more quickly. Next up, this little teeny tiny one. So you can imagine, you know, the February 9 patch is a pretty small stitch to begin with. This one here is a free pattern from Fat Quarter Shop. Now I'll leave a link below to this pattern or series of patterns. It's also stitched on 16 count Whimsy by Picture This Plus because part of the point of stitching it was to use that little scrap of fabric that was created when I stitched some other things on the Whimsy. And I did 310, B5200, 347, and 760 for the colors for this one. And there's like this whole little series. They're called for stitched on, I think, like 10 count, like punched paper, not punched paper. I don't like, you know, the paper that you can stitch on, I think is the intention, but I've been stitching them as these teeny tiny pillows to use up scraps of fabric. So you saw that when I stitched the snowman one in January. So I did finish that as well. And then I have Love Notes, Hugs and Kisses from With Thy Needle and Thread. So I think it wasn't until January or February that I like ordered my very first With Thy Needle and Thread pattern. I had admired some of their patterns, some of the patterns from Brenda Gervais before, but hadn't ordered any. And I decided to get the Love Notes book, Jelly Bean Jubilee, and there's also a Halloween one that's like a booklet that I ordered. And so I will probably be stitching some smalls from With Thy Needle and Thread and Brenda Gervais this year. This is 16 count Milk Chocolate by Wichelt with the called for DMC. And this is the only one that I finished. There are several small stitches in it, and mine are on 16 count, whereas the models I believe are on 40 count, so they're definitely a little bit smaller than mine turned out to be, but I was still really enjoying them. I liked the kind of like repetitive nature of this. It's sometimes nice to have a stitch that like you don't have to reference the pattern so much. And so I did start another one, but it was a little bit close to Valentine's Day when I received all my material, so I will probably stitch more of them next year as well. The next finish I have kind of surprised me. It is the Spring Quaker from Primrose Cottage. So last time I had showed you the Valentine's Quaker, and this one took me a year to complete. Now, of course, I was working on it for a year, but like I started it and would pick it up and put it down. And when I finished it, I knew that I really wanted to get a spring finish because I would be able to display love notes, but then the next one I have is the Bee Quaker, which I could display all year long, of course, if I wanted to, but I knew I wanted to do the spring one, and a couple other like inspiring factors there. Last year, Helen D had come up with the idea of Make Way for Market, where like while you're watching all the like new market releases and, you know, anticipating those patterns, stitching some things that you purchased at the previous market. And I believe that Primrose Cottage released Spring Quaker last year at market. And so I was like, well, I should start it. At the very least, even if I don't finish it, it took me so long to stitch the last one, which was not necessarily my experience with the Honeybee Quaker, I think is what it's actually called, and which I don't know if I called it the right thing earlier, and the Autumn Quaker. And I actually did stitch those in much less time, but I just wasn't sure because this one was monochromatic again. There's some similarities between the two of them, but I think because I stitched this on a lighter fabric, this is 16 count Serene by Picture This Plus, it just meant that seeing it was a lot easier, and it just came together really quickly, and I really enjoyed stitching on it and was able to finish it. Then I wrapped it around some cardstock and added my 3M picture hanging strips so that I can change it out and have it ready for spring, and I'm really happy. I do still need to finish one for winter. I have the Honeybee, Autumn, Valentine, now spring, and so I'd like to have something in there for winter. I think I'll focus maybe and do the winter Quaker first and then maybe the Christmas Quaker or more as I'm inspired, because I do have a couple others, and I'm inspired to revisit them because I was like, oh, I actually really enjoyed stitching it. I think I just need to make a good fabric choice. So yeah, there's the Spring Quaker. It is with Weeks Dye Works Peoria Purple. It's very similar to the called for. It's a different over-dyed purple floss that's called for, I think, from Classic Colorworks. But I didn't have that one. I had ordered some purples from Weeks Dye Works, and so I just picked one. And I went with the Serene, which is different than the called for, just because I have stitched a few other spring things in the Serene fabric and I knew I liked it, and so it was a way of adding color without it being too dark, because I like color, but the dark fabric made stitching the Quaker tricky. So that is my 4th fully finish, and then my 5th fully finished object is the Mini Sampler Series Spring by Curious Carrie Designs. It is stitched on 16 count Serene from Picture This Plus with the called for DMC, and it is from the Just Cross Stitch Spring 2025 magazine. Is it spring? Yes, Spring 2025 magazine. So if you subscribe to Just Cross Stitch, or you may have seen this otherwise, it is going to be a series. So here's the magazine. The first one was released, the spring one, and it is called for on the Serene, and then there are 3 more for the entire series. She calls for it to be finished, as you can see, on the Paisley and Polka Dots finishing piece that I can't recall the name of. I'll list it below, but there's a kit available from Just Cross Stitch magazine. It does use 14 count though, so I wanted to stitch it on 16 count. It does make mine a little bit smaller, but I'm kind of okay with that. It allows me to add a little bit more pattern behind it by adding some patterned paper there. So I decided to source my own materials. Plus it was, it's called for DMC, and I have a set of DMC, so I thought, well, I won't need all of the threads, but you can get the whole thing kitted up, which is pretty cool. So I did order this finishing piece from Paisley and Polka Dots, and did all the finishing for it, so I'm excited to be able to switch it out. I did paint the insides of the flowers yellow because that's what Paisley and Polka Dots suggested, and I hadn't really been thinking about that in terms of how it would look with these pieces, because I noticed now that they didn't do that in this finish, and when I was finishing it, I was like, oh, yellow looks great with this. but wasn't thinking about the other pieces. I do think the yellow will look great with the summer and the fall, but it might look a little out of place when we get to adding this winter design here. So I don't know. I might go back and try to put some white paint in there, figure something out, and not leave it the yellow, but I figure that's many months from now. I can stitch the next two and enjoy them. And I don't know if my subscription is going to run out before the series is finished, so I might have to make sure I renew my subscription because I definitely want to stitch all 4 of them. And yeah, so I'm excited for that. I don't often do round finishes, but they are super, super easy to do. So I certainly should do more of them when the piece calls for it and not be afraid to do them more often. I could see why maybe like it could be a little bit tighter in spots, which could be a little bit like user error, or maybe adding some batting instead would help. If you have some experience with round finishes, and you have any suggestions for how to make sure the edges are really tight. Maybe I'm using the wrong kind of, I just used embroidery floss, that like the floss we, the DMC we typically stitch with, to lace it and pull it tight. So maybe that wasn't the right call. Maybe there's a thread that I can be a little, pull a little bit more aggressively with, or so that it, tightens up. But yeah, just let me know. I'm open to any suggestions, but I'm really excited for this new piece. I love alphabet samplers. I always stitch them a lot, and I like having different seasons. I did the Lizzie Kate series last year, and we'll be doing this series this year, the Little Stitcher series, a couple of them. I'm a big sucker for seasonal alphabets, so I'm really excited about this series. I almost forgot about this little stitch. This is a finish though. So those were my 5 fully finishes. This is the only thing that I have finished and not fully finished. I do often fully finish a project within about, I would say, a week to a month from when I finish stitching it. I like to finish them pretty quickly, and I'm a seasonal stitcher, so I'm usually like, oh, I finished this, the holiday is right around the corner, like, this is a little bit less so, but the spring stitch, it'll be ready for spring. So I'm motivated to make sure that it's ready to go when the season turns, kind of thing. But anyway, this is the March monthly mini from Primrose Cottage, 18 count Heartland by Picture This Plus, called for DMC. So I'm stitching the entire series. This is the 7th one I've stitched. I need 5 more. So I've been slowly kind of working my way through them. I was motivated to pick this up again. There's that, as I mentioned, the Make Way for Market idea. This was another pattern or set of patterns that I picked up last year at Market, and I was like, I should keep making progress on that, because I did want to have them ready for each month going forward. And so if I kind of stay on top of them, and I could very well do that this year. I only have through September still to finish. I have done October through February already. And I randomly finished May last year. So anyway, excited to have that finished, but I do probably want to finish 1 or 2 more things that I'm going to turn into a pillow, so that it feels worth it to sit down and stitch pillows, because I don't usually like to finish a single pillow at a time. I usually, like you saw my first 3 finishes this time were pillows, and they were all stitched together at the same time. And so it motivates me to take out the machine and actually get that done. But the other reason it's kind of hard to remember this one, besides being tiny, I record everything in the cross stitch journals by It's So Emma. And I decided that I wouldn't assign each of the monthly minis their own project page. I would just put one project page for them all, because all the details would be the same and that kind of thing. But it means then I don't record them each time. And so when I go through and I kind of try to think of try to figure out what I've been doing for a while. But otherwise, in general, I think this is a really nice way of keeping track of your stitches and adding journal. I know some people do like the book of days, and so they're recording what they did every day. That's not something that I personally would keep up with, but I do like having a record of projects. So that's a good solution for me when I use it properly. Next up, I have 2 whips. This is Love Notes Key to My Heart with a needle and thread, so from the Love Notes book, and I had showed you the other finish earlier. It's one of those things, like, this pattern is so incredibly simple. It could stitch very quickly, but Again, when I started stitching it, it was so close to Valentine's Day, I wasn't very motivated to make sure it was finished for the season. Even though all my Valentine stuff is still up, I plan on keeping it up all of February, but I just kind of wanted to start looking ahead to spring. And so this one I'm kind of just saving for when I need some really easy stitching. I don't have to like look at the pattern because I'm just stitching more and more of these hearts. So it's one of those ones that like is a little bit like on the back burner, but I have been working on it, and it's a good thing for like, if I'm like, oh, well, I really want to stitch up, so for instance, that March pillow. Well, if I just finish this up, then I could stitch 2 pillows because that's my intention for how to finish this one. So it's one of those things that maybe or maybe will not get finished for this year, or maybe I'll just start working on some other pillows. But I did start another one from that Love Notes series. In general, if I buy like a booklet of patterns, I consider myself having used the booklet or stitched it, like even if I only do one of the patterns. I don't feel like I need to do them all to feel like it was a good purchase. I'm usually happy even if I just finish one, if there's a pattern that I feel really strongly that I like. But I do intend to stitch a few from all of the different Brenda Gervais with Thy Needle and Thread pattern booklets that I recently purchased. My next whip is All Things Spring by Erin Elizabeth Designs, featured in the Just Cross Stitch Spring 2024 magazine. That is where I originally got this pattern, or where I have this pattern from. But my understanding, because I was watching Erin Elizabeth's Market FlossTube, like she was showing her new Market release, this will be released at Market. I think it's called Hello Spring again, because after this was featured in the magazine, it was turned into a series. And so there's Hello Spring, Hello Summer, Hello Autumn, I think. And she's also releasing Hello Winter at Market this year. And I did not realize it was part of a series. I personally just needed a small, squarish finish for a particular frame. I change it out every month, as I do with many of my things. I change them out either seasonally or monthly. And so this frame needed something for spring. I think it maybe had something for like Easter, but I wanted something kind of just more generally spring that would like last from, say, March to June or whatever. Then I wanted to switch it to summer or something like that. So anyway, I started stitching this, and then when I was watching her video, she mentioned that it was a series, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know. Do I want to now just stitch the whole series? So I'm a little bit on the fence about that. But I did, this was originally, the called for is Beautiful Beige Aida from Wichelt. I don't think I mentioned this before, but I do know I've mentioned all my fabrics. I stitch on Aida with 2 threads, almost exclusively 16 count. But even on that little one that I used the 18 count fabric, I still stitch with 2 threads. It's just my preference. I really like something that is good coverage. And anyway, so this was originally charted on a brown fabric, and therefore the spring was charted in white, and it looked really nice in white. But because I switched to the Serene, you couldn't see the white, or it wouldn't have shown up very well. So I picked another color from the pattern. This purple color is one of the called for DMCs, and it shows up only a handful of other times. There's like a little butterfly and flower. So I thought, you know, of course it coordinates, and it's not like if I added a whole bunch of purple, it would really throw off the balance. So I thought it worked out as a nice way to change it up without deviating too much from the pattern. As you can see, I'm almost finished with this, but because I now know it's part of a series, I'm a little bit like, do I want to stop and reconsider and actually stitch this in a frame and like switch it out and just do her whole series? Or should I just keep it going with my original plan where I'm just going to put this as one of the months in this frame and then not stitch the other ones? Hello Winter, like I think I mentioned, is coming out. It looked cute. I've seen Hello Autumn before. I liked it. Hello Summer is a lighthouse, which is not necessarily my like summer theming. I do much more of like a camping kind of theme for summer, but I don't know. I'm still kind of deciding on it. I don't have much more to go on this, but I have been stitching it for like a week straight now, like pretty much exclusively. And I'm getting to the point where I'm feeling a little antsy to go do something else. And so I don't know, I'm not like necessarily a monogamous stitcher, but I do, because I stitch small things, I do tend to stitch on something for a few days in a row and then I'm finished with it. Or, you know, stitch on it for a week, maybe 2 in a row, and I'm finished with it. So I don't have to stay focused too long, but I still get to that point where I'm like, yeah, you know, after like a week, I'm like, I kind of want to do something else. There's so many other things. I start getting a little bit distracted. So, yeah, maybe this will be finished. I probably will. It's close enough, but I might need to take a break and just have a new start or something small to work on in between. But that is my other whip. I'm going to share a tiny bit of haul this time as it relates to plans and that sort of thing. So when I saw the Just Cross Stitch magazine with that sampler series, I was like, I'm absolutely stitching this. I need to go order everything right now. So I ordered 16 count Serene. I had a piece that was almost big enough, but not quite. And I was like, I don't want to like, you know, get frustrated and, you know, stitch it on something that doesn't work. Plus I love Serene, so I'm like, I'm gonna use more of it. And so I got another chunk of that. And then I decided I would also, I was like trying to predict what other Picture This Plus colors might be used in the series. So I ordered a purple based on that as well. The Serene is actually kind of like, it's one of those things where like I can see what my camera is showing you. I don't know what it's going to look like in sort of the final video, but Serene is like a bluey green, very light color. And so it is not quite true, but almost. And like I said, I just use it a lot for spring, so I thought, why not grab a bigger piece? And so then I cut a piece for Hello Spring, for that sampler. Like I've already used a bunch of it. And then I did then I picked up Sprite from Picture This Plus as a guess to what the winter one might be stitched on from that series. And because I have wanted a light purple as an option before, and because I've had Whimsy, which I had some finishes on before, and that is much darker than what I would ideally have wanted for certain things. And so I thought, it'd be nice to have, I like Whimsy, it's a beautiful color, I like a lot of colors, but I thought it'd be nice to have some light color choices. And then kind of just replaced some things. So I'd used up most of my jade. I had some January finishes on this and used up most of my Mirage, again with those January finishes. So I'm like, well, if I liked it enough to stitch several pieces on it, probably good to do kind of like a restock. And maybe it's not everyone's inclination, but for me, I'm like, if I find a color easy to use, I've pulled it for more than one project, I'm going to assume that I would like to pull it again. And also like in the future, I stitched several pieces on Serene last year for spring. I found myself drawn right back to it this year. So to have those options going forward for when I want to stitch some more Valentine things or winter things. Next year, I'll have the Mirage and Jade. I probably need to pick up more Whimsy too, because I really enjoyed that for Valentine's Day this year. Because I needed to order from Paisleys and Polka Dots to get this finishing piece, I decided that I would consider some of their other pieces. I had seen several people use this calendar box. Oh, sorry for the glare there. This calendar box for the Robin Pickens Bird series. And I've only purchased one of them, but I love I think they're called like seasonal couriers. I love the idea of the finish. I like that it comes finished for you. You have to paint the other ones. And so I was like, well, I've been thinking about the idea. I think I want to stitch them. I have the one. So I don't know. I feel a little like I hadn't ordered it because I hadn't stitched any of them yet. But since I had to place an order already, you're already there for shipping, etc. I was like, well, maybe I should get another piece. And so then I got another piece. and I ordered the Paisley and Polka Dots mug cross stitch display. I don't want to show the pieces, although this is like a picture from the instructions, but you can check it out on their website. It looks like a mug. It has a little area that you can put some greenery behind it. It's again one of those things I don't have a super strong plan for, although, you know, I have a plan forming in my mind now that I have it. And I think it will hold many small stitches, and I, of course, love to stitch small, so maybe things that I would have otherwise turned into a pillow could go on there, but I haven't like painted it or put it together or anything, and so I just don't want to show the broken apart pieces or whatever. But yeah, I have that for the future, and so I got some fun things for future plans. And the last thing I wanted to mention for haul, I mentioned that I had purchased with a needle and thread Love Notes, Jelly Bean, Jubilee, and fall one, which was Jack-o'-lantern Jubilee. What I decided to do was like pull all the threads for them. I probably didn't need to do it for Jack-o'-lantern Jubilee, but I needed to order some of the fancy flosses, and I did want to be ready to go, but particularly for Jelly Bean Jubilee, because that's probably where I'll stitch from next, I decided I would pull all the threads for the entire booklet. And then when I wanted to start a particular project, I would pull from that larger ring all the threads that I need and then put them back so that like all the DMCs are already pulled, and as I switch from one project to the next, I don't have to like go back to my entire collection. It just makes kitting up a new kit or a new project much faster, which is pretty important to me. It does mean that like there are certain threads pulled out of my collection right now, but there are some times where I have doubles or I've split a thread, or and because I don't have too many whips at any one time, it works out pretty well for me. But I did something similar with the 12 monthly minis, and this I did buy a whole set of the DMCs, even if I already owned a few of them, because I was like, I know this is going to be something I'm stitching on for months, and if I have to stop every time and completely search for these threads, which I know sounds silly because some of them only have like 3 colors, it just would like, it would slow me down or make me less motivated to complete it. So I did things like I cut all the little pieces of fabric that I needed to stitch every single design. So, you know, made 12 pieces of the Aida that I would need. I also at one point did 12 of the little backers I'd need for the pillow. I decided to make them all the same sort of neutral brown. And so that way, like, I have no excuse not to just like keep going forward with the project. And so I'm considering something similar with other booklets because it did work really well with this one. I was able to complete a good number of them, and I feel like, you know, every time I go to pick one out, it's a much faster process for me. I know that doesn't work for everyone, or that like having those extra threads might not be a good fit, but I thought I would mention it in case someone else would be like, oh, maybe organizing projects like that might be a little bit better of a fit for me as well. I had a few more things I wanted to share with you, but I thought I'd bring back a variety of stitching so you could look at stitching while I mention them. I haven't ordered too many things, like pre-ordered too many things from Market. I'm more likely to want to order them like when I'm actually ready to stitch them, because I ordered some things at Market last year that I love and I do want to stitch, but have just kind of been sitting in my collection, and I got a little bit like overwhelmed with too many choices, too many things. So I thought I might try to spread out the purchases a little bit. I did go ahead and pre-order the cookbook because I believe if you don't get it around Market, you aren't able to get it. So I ordered the cookbook, and then I picked 2 patterns, Sweet Wing Studio, You Are My Sunshine, and Heart and Hand Imprints Stitch and Maker. I really want to stitch the one that the maker of. There's 2 patterns, Stitch and Maker. I definitely want to stitch Maker. And so, you know, there's definitely a whole list of other things I have my eye on. I've written them down. I don't want to forget about them, but I'm not sure I want to have too many patterns coming in at one time. So then the other thing, I just wanted to mention some FlossTubers that I like to watch. Some of them I've mentioned before, but I do consistently watch them. So I will just, you know, mention them more than once. But I then also had some people that I'm not sure if I've mentioned in the past. And so I consistently watch Chari's stitches and her sister Stacy. Two tall stitchers, Helen D, Mrs. AZfamilyzoo, I've mentioned before. I believe I've mentioned Sarah's Stitchery before, but if I haven't, I've watched her for many months. Someone new who I saw recently was Jennifer Spence. She is a stitcher and also a paper crafter. For those of you who don't know, I also paper craft. And so she just recently started sharing her FlossTube videos. So I'll link her. And then I think I've mentioned her before, Shannon from Stitching Shan. I think she started with like within the last year or whatever, but I've also really consistently watched her videos, enjoy seeing them. She's like, I like that she shares some of her, like she's been stitching for a few years, but only recently started floss tubing. So like she has things that are finished. She stitches a variety of projects. And now that I'm thinking about it, like I feel like maybe I said this last time, but like she stitches like beautiful full coverage that I would never stitch, but I absolutely love watching come to life on her channel. And then Peony Stitchery, I know they're super popular, many people watch them, but I think Emma and Sarah from Sarah's Stitchery are two people who are doing the seasonal couriers in that Polka Dot and Paisley's calendar box that I showed earlier. So I did want to make sure that I mentioned them and gave them credit, and I'm sorry I didn't mention it, like specifically name them when I was showing you the box, but still here at my desk. So this box, I believe they are both stitching the seasonal couriers in it. I think that's a cool idea and a good fit for them. So a good fit for the box. Yeah. I hope that wherever you are, you're getting some time to stitch, relax, enjoy your hobby. I know that there are all kinds of challenges that we face every day in the world, and I also know that a lot of us use stitching as a way to not necessarily distract ourselves, but like as a way to, you know, calm ourselves even in troubling times or even in difficult times. Whether it's something as simple as like it's just been cold for days and days on end, or you've been dealing with sickness as, you know, happens at this time of the year. And then, you know, there's much greater challenges that are happening in the world. And stitching is a little break from all of that for many of us. So I hope that you're all finding some time to take that break and take some time for yourself. And I look forward to continuing to see everything that you guys are up to on Instagram. If you have a YouTube channel, like, tell me below, you know, leave a comment, let me know, or we know where I can find you, that kind of thing, because I am trying to like grow the number of people that I am watching or finding on Instagram or things like that. So I will hopefully be back for another update in March, but we'll see. Have a great day. Bye.